All right, my name is Patrick Swartz. I'm a solution engineer, pre-sales engineer, whatever they want to call it today for SUSE. I've been there about 2 years now. Was a long-term customer of SUSE before that. So, yeah, I made up green. So, if you guys, anybody in here from Red Hat? Yeah. So I love Red Hat too. I mean, you guys are good. Yeah, competition's good, right? Anyway, so today we're going to talk about this open source project called Uyuni, and just what it is. This is kind of a phase 2 of my last year's talk. I gave the same talk last year, or I gave a talk on Uyuni here last year as well, a kind of introduction to Uyuni, and this is meant to be kind of a phase 2. However, it's just kind of a recap. Has anybody ever heard of Uyuni before today? No. Has anybody heard of Spacewalk? Okay, the Red Hat project that lasted for a long time. In the enterprise world, it was called Satellite Server, and it went up to Satellite Server version 5 before Red Hat decided to shift gears and go a different direction with the product and rewrote it for Red Hat Satellite 6. Well, Spacewalk continued on, and well, that is blurred out, isn't it? You know, it was an open source project. It kept going for many years after that, and as Red Hat Satellite version 5 is becoming end of life this year, they decided that, you know, anybody in the community wanted to take on the project. SUSE said we would do it. They said, anybody, really? Nobody's going to respond? And we're saying, like, we'll do it? And they're like, no, okay. So we forked Spacewalk, and it became Uyuni. And what is Uyuni? Well, first, where did the name come from? The name Uyuni is actually a reference to a city in Bolivia that's on the edge of the world's largest salt flat. Why is that important? Well, salt, and hence Salt Stack, and kudos to our compadres that are here from Salt Stack in the booth. You guys should go visit them. A lot of the underlying functions out of Uyuni come from Salt. And so, as homage to Salt, the project's name's Uyuni. So, long way around to say, you know, fun name, can't pronounce it. But what is it? Well, it's an automated way to do patch management, package management. It allows us to easily onboard systems and give us that console by which we can see all of our systems. And when I say all of our systems, I mean literally just practically any Linux-based system today we can support. We can support, obviously, OpenSUSE. We can support the enterprise SUSE, SUSE Linux Enterprise. We can support Red Hat Enterprise Linux. We can support CentOS. We can support Ubuntu 16 LTS. We can support Ubuntu 18 LTS. And you know, later this summer we'll be able to support Ubuntu, 20, going to 20 LTS this summer. We'll have that in here as well. So Uyuni is now the open source project by which all of that combines. And so it gives us that single tool to do automated deployments. It gives us a single tool to do automated system configuration, patch management, repository management. As I was giving an example earlier today on a repository, say you're pointing your system to, you know, the upstream channel, right? And you patch a whole bunch of systems today. And then tomorrow you got to patch the other half of the systems. Well, overnight, one of those packages got upgraded. And now the patches you did today are newer than the ones you did yesterday. Well, Uyuni gives us the ability to create what I call lines in the sand, the ability to control repositories. And so we can say that when I patch my systems, I know exactly every system that's pointing to that set of repositories are going to be identical to the ones before it. And I can now start in version 4 of this, or version 2020 now, I should say. We changed the versioning scheme. Gives us the ability to create very specific lines in the sand. And we're going to talk about some of that. We can get very detailed compliance on our systems. You know, security is a key point about how to manage our systems today. How many times has InfoSec come down and said, oh, you know, there's this CVE that's out. You know, how many systems are affected by this CVE? Well, we can actually use the tool to find out exactly how many systems are affected by that CVE and patch them all within a couple of clicks. So it gives us that complete lifecycle, because as admins, and if you could actually read that, it talks about patches and updates, configs, and install software, doing account management, password management, the ability to do, system security, all of that falls to the systems admin, right? A lot of responsibility. So today, in version 2020.01, and we've changed the way we are naming, versioning our OS, our systems now. We now include CentOS 8, RHEL 8, and of course, SUSE Linux Enterprise Server expanded support for RHEL 8. So we can include that into Uyuni as well. We now include the ability to add, automate the deployment of Grafana and Prometheus, and set up Prometheus node exporter on all of our systems, and a way to then add monitoring to our systems with Grafana and Prometheus. This idea of formula with forms. Now, this is something I did a bigger demo of last year, but we'll look at it a little bit again today. We've added a lot more enhancements to this, and it gives us the ability to create behind the scenes a set of forms, if you will, okay, that allows you to predefine what you want. Because let's, for example, bind, okay, if we want to deploy bind config has 1 million options in it, right? Well, maybe you don't want to give everybody the access to all of those options. Maybe you want to give them, 2 or 3 to be able to modify, or SSHD config. Maybe we only want to expose, maybe port number, or the banner pieces. We only want to expose those pieces that we want to change. We can create a form now with formula with forms that will then give the administrator, whoever's on the system, they will drop down and say, I want to change the banner to this, and I want to change the port to that, and that's it. And they can't change anything else about OpenSSHD, okay? This content lifecycle management, this is what I'm going to spend a lot of time on today with this filter idea. This is where we get into that repository management, that line in the sand to create very detailed functions or repositories, what we want to have in our system, okay? And again, the enhanced support for Debian and Ubuntu systems. There's still some things in Ubuntu that it's out of our control, like we can't do CVE management in Ubuntu, just because they don't provide that metadata in their packages. We can't do that. So, and of course, this is kind of a fun thing with the virtual machine management with LiveVirt, which I'll show some today as well. This is kind of some of the newer things that the community, and again, this is a community open source project, so we're looking for more developers. If you've been, like to develop, like to play with this kind of stuff, join the project. I'll give you the link at the very end here. So we're going to look at some of this today. Right now, as a matter of fact. I told you I don't like a lot of slides. And so what are we going to look at? We're going to look at, real quick, some of the monitoring pieces and how Grafana and Prometheus works. And how we use that within SUSE Manager, or Uyuni. And if I use the two terms, SUSE Manager and Uyuni, please forgive me. They're the same product. One's open source, one's enterprise supported. Okay. If you want support, you get SUSE Manager. If you want to do it on your own, you go Uyuni. We're going to look at one formula with form use case with SSSD. How many people utilize SSSD to join your machines to Active Directory, okay, or any other account management infrastructure. So we're going to look at a use case using the SSSD formula with form, and there's another one that I want to show as well. We're going to go into a lot more detail on the content lifecycle, and then we're going to play with some virtual machines. All right, so that's what we're going to do for those. Let me blow this out of here. And I apologize, I've kind of blown this up a little bit. Can you see it's kind of okay? I know it's awful bright. And our next release actually introduces a dark skin mode, or whatever you want to call it. But this particular release, you can see I'm on the 2020 '01 version, and it doesn't have that, unfortunately. So anyway, all right. So right off the bat, what we have here, this is the main primary interface. This is our overview interface. It gives us a chance to look at systems that maybe not have been talking to us in the last little bit. I've got some systems that have gone inactive on me. Maybe I want to know that, right off the bat. I can see systems that have critical updates and how many security patches are running against them. This is my top 10. I don't have that many systems on this box. What was the most recent actions that have been applied? I can see admin suspended a virtual domain, resumed a virtual domain, applied a high state, if you're familiar with SALT. That's the terminology of applying a high state to a machine. You can see I failed a couple of high states. The action actually failed, so I can see what happened. It only gives us also the ability to create organizations. And so I can have, in a somewhat multi-tenant world, I can have an organization for maybe my Pasadena team versus an organization, and then they have their set of servers, and I can have another organization for my Provo team, and they can have their set of servers, and that can all be done within the same infrastructure. And so I can have multiple organizations, and then I can have multiple users within those organizations that have roles, okay? And so that's why it's important to see who the user was that were doing these, okay? And at this time, I'm in the organization of scale 18x, just a single organization. So I can see all kinds of stuff that have happened. There's my most relevant security patches that are out there. I've got system groups. It gives me the ability to create specific groups so I can apply things to the whole group if I wanted to, for example. Or and groups can overlap. You can have a Zen type of group mentality. Everything that's in production, that's a RHEL 7. Everything that fits in the combination of the two, apply these set of patches. So I can create overlapping system groups, which works really nice in my world. And I can see the systems that have been recently registered. So, but the first thing I wanted to show you real quick is, how many familiar with Prometheus and Grafana? Somewhat familiar with, a little bit familiar with, not at all familiar, okay. Well, there's two pieces. Prometheus is an ability to pull system metrics out of a machine. And you can get data from a machine about what the machine is doing. Okay, and what we do and how it relates to System Manager or Uyuni, we have the ability to, if I want to look at a system here, and let's just pick on this guy real quick. I can say I want to send to that machine the Prometheus exporter, okay? And they're called node exporters. So I want to configure that box to send his data to the Grafana or to the Prometheus server, and then at the same time, then I have Grafana, then is the visualization side of that, so I can now visualize all that's happening inside of Prometheus. So I can configure this, and this again, I can see here this particular form, and I've got the node exporter is enabled, and I can provide specific arguments if I need to. Maybe I've got it set up to listen on some other address besides the standard 9100 address. I can configure that here. Maybe this is an important Apache server. We ship with 3 primary node exporters: the system node exporter, Apache node exporter, and Postgres exporter is what we ship with by default. There's a lot of others out there that can be added to the system. These are just the ones that come predefined in the infrastructure that you can download and start with. But if I wanted to start grabbing all of the metrics out of my Apache server, I could enable that, apply the states, and I would start getting the data from that machine. Okay? So that's how I would quickly enable to add a machine, and we're going to do that real quick here. Let's look at, let me go back to my system list here, and if you can see over here, make sure I can walk, I've got some systems that are just listed as salts, And I've got some that are listed as salt with monitoring, okay? You can see that now I can see which ones have monitoring and which ones don't. All right, let's pick on one of these here. And we'll pick on OpenSUSE Elite 15, number C, okay? But if I notice, I think he's paused at the moment. So let's pause and go back. Let's go back upstream just real quick here. Let's look at the virtualization side. And they'll all come together real quickly. So I've got my laptop here, this poor little, well overabused Dell XPX 13 box is maxed out. And I can see that he is my KVM host. All of these demo machines are running on this little laptop, okay? Poor thing. Anyway, so he's my KVM server. And I've got, because he's, let me go back to my systems list real quick and show you something down here. You'll notice his is slightly different. His says virtualization host, okay? So now I know that that's my virtualization host, and it's my laptop. So I can click on him. And because he's my virtualization host, I have more menus up here, one of them being virtualization. And because I can see that, now I can see all of my VMs that are running over here in Virt Manager, okay? I can now manage them. I don't have to use Virt Manager to manage them. I can manage them right from this interface, okay? And for example, I can see some of these are stopped, some of these are running, and this one is paused. 15B is paused. Well, if you notice, if you can watch over here, see this, the icon here, I can definitely see he's paused. So let's go ahead and unpause him, click on run, and boom. Okay, he started up now. So we'll let him give him a chance to get, you know, memory started and all that kind of stuff. But let's go back to, while we're here, we might as well stay here for a second. This is a feature I'm really excited about, and this is going to continue to get better over time, okay? And this is brand new with this 2020 version 01 feature. The ability to actually get a remote console within this interface, okay? So right here, I can see I've got an icon for a monitor, for a graphical console. And I can click on that guy. It opens up a new tab, and voila. I have a remote console to that machine. And sure enough, just to prove that I'm not lying, voila, I'm there, okay? I know it's hard to see, no, it's really, really hard to see. Move forward or take my word for it. But, I'm excited about that. And this is very infant, you know, it's at a very infancy stage right now with this. There's some glitches. I mean, Ubuntu 16, it's you know. And I don't know if it's because of Splice or KVM that I'm using underneath, but it doesn't like to. It's not real happy sometimes. But it'll even work with. I was able to get Ubuntu 18 and a GUI actually as well. So let's see. That one's not running. Here we go. So let's see. Cross our fingers and see what happens here. I was afraid of that. So let's just close that real quick. And let's try that again. There we go. Okay. So it's got some glitches, you know, and it could be just because of my environment of this laptop and running out of memory, you know, whatnot. But, you know, I would, if I had a bigger machine, I'd like to see if that's the case or not. But for this demo, I just want to show you that I can get to the graphical interface. There's options within that you can try. Here, I can see I can add memory, CPU count. I can look at what type of file system or bus system. I'm setting up the Virt.io. I can see what my CD-ROM is set to, my network defaults, my MAC address. And this is probably where I need to play with some, the graphics. Is it splice or VNC? Or maybe there's some tweaking I need to be done there. Okay. So I can manage that all from here. All right. Now let's go back, since we had a chance to, everything's running that I want to have running at the moment, and go back to my system list and look at the one that we were back on the monitoring. We said that we had one here that didn't have monitoring running, and the one I wanted to pick on was this guy right here. Okay. And before I do that, though, I want to show you this is the Prometheus interface on my monitoring server. And I can see I've got clients. I've got 2 out of the 4 actually running up. And I can see data about that. And when the last time it was scraped, they use the idea that data is scraped off of a system and sent in. And then I can see my Uyuni server, because I can monitor. Now I can actually monitor my Uyuni server as well. All the things going on with it, the Postgres SQL data, if it's in good shape or not, where is it, when was the last time it was running at 100%, which was a lot today. But you can see I've got 2 out of 4 of my clients. And then looking at the Grafana interface, and I can the ability to see whether it's the clients or I can see my Uyuni server. And you can see here I can highlight an area and zoom in on that space if my mouse would work like I want it to. Okay, so I'm able to zoom in then on a time window within Grafana, and I can see that, yep, sure enough, load average was pretty high at that point in time. Okay, I can see my network traffic, my CPU, definitely at 100%, and my disk I/O and whatnot. Okay, so let's go back over here to my system, the one we're going to pick on, and we're going to go over here to formulas. We're going to scroll down here to Prometheus exporter. All right, that's the one I want to send to that machine. I'm going to save them. All I did was add another menu up here to give me the ability to now modify what I want to do if there's anything. I just want the standard node exporter or the other 2 we talked about. Okay, we're just going to do the standard. I'm going to save that, and now it tells me I have to apply a salt high state to this machine. So I'm going to apply that high state, and it comes up and shows me all that's going to happen to the machine when I click on apply. What's all going to happen? And I can scroll down through here, and I can see exactly, there's my node exporter piece. It's going to install this package called GitHub Prometheus Node Exporter. Make sure it's installed, and here's where it's going to get it from, and permissions it's going to apply. It's going to make sure it's going to require this, and it's going to watch this service to make sure it's running. Okay? So this is all good salt stuff. And how many people know salt, or know a little bit about salt? Okay, it's amazing stuff. Let me tell you. Yes, I'm a fanboy. So anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and apply this high state, and you can see it's been scheduled. I can go up here to my events now. I can see that it's pending. If I click on that a couple of times, it'll kick off here in a second. I can look at history of what's been done. There we go. So it's gone in now. It's been picked up. You can see the status means the two-way the systems are working together to apply that high state, and we can watch that happen for a few seconds. You can see the applied high state is almost done, because now I see this package refresh. got kicked off. So now the system is refreshing to know what packages are installed on this machine, okay? And so the refresh is almost complete, the high state completed, and now my package refresh has been completed, okay? Well now, if I go back over to this page, and I switch this back from the Uyuni server to the clients, and I look at, I narrow this down some so I can see, and sure enough, now I have 5 of them instead of 4. It just automatically picked it up and sent my data. And if I look at the Prometheus page, I can see, if I refresh this page, I can see I now have 4 out of 5 that are actually up. And it actually refreshed one of them that was showing down earlier. Now only have the issue with the Ubuntu 16. And that's because there's a package problem with Ubuntu 16 and the age of the Prometheus node exporter package that I've got to figure out yet. But I think that was kind of cool. I mean, there's a lot of things. There's a ton of monitoring tools I know out there, right? You know, and a couple of good vendors that are here. But just for something simple that you can configure open source wise, and you can manage it from the single interface of Uyuni, and to be able to see what your systems are doing, I think there's a lot of advantages to this option. I can see the number of cores, how much memory, the status of it, the root file system. Let's go to one that's been up a little longer. Let's go to A, okay. I can see my system load averages, you know, my disk space usage, my mount points, and all of this is configurable. What do you want to scrape, okay, for the machine? So that's kind of cool. All right. So we've looked at a little bit on our Prometheus and Grafana. We've looked a little bit on the form. So let's go get a different formula. Let's look, while we're picking on this guy, we're not actually going to run this one, but we'll look at it. See, these are the formulas that come with the system by default. Bind, DHCP, locale, system lock, DHCP, virtualization host, VSFTP, even the CPU mitigations. If you want to turn those on or off or set them to auto, you can even do a formula for that. There's my monitoring. Well, right here, this under security, this is one that I added, okay, with a team of folks from SUSE. We worked together and created this. Actually, they created it. I'm abusing it by showing it to you guys. I'm going to add that one so we can look at that real quick. Save. And now I've got a new one up here. This one gives me the ability to do my SSD configuration. And right now I've got these, it's set up as a drop-down right now. But I could have set this particular as a field. So I could type it in. Or in the background, I could have put in, these are the only 2 I want you to show, and I want you to show them as a drop-down. So now the admin, he only has 2 choices. There's no guessing, there's no mistyping. Because some of those domain names can get really long, you know. And so I can control what is being selected here, okay? And I can control which domain controller, what's the AD account, and you can see this one is actually a free-flowing field, okay? So I can type in my user, AD master user, okay? And then that particular AD master user password, you know, and it's hidden, okay? I can look up my directory, and this is another one of those that can get, you know, if you mistype it, it's just not going to work, all right? This gives me the ability to create that drop-down to say, I want you to go into this LDAP group, not this LDAP group, again. And then which Active Directory work group do we want to join, okay? But we know there's a lot of other SSD and Active Directory and LDAP configuration options. But these are the ones we're able to narrow down to make available. And these could have been, you know, these are text state files on the backside of in the command line. We can go back and edit to change the options that are listed here for the formula. And if I were to save the formula, I can then apply the high state to that box. Since I don't have my I was trying to play with this, get it set up so I could hit my Active Directory service that's running in Azure, but I wasn't guaranteed that I would have good network access out to Azure to do that. So, sorry. All right. Any questions so far? I know I've been rambling on for a half an hour now. Okay? All right. So let's go look at what I really, another really cool function that is a lot different, that's continuing to expand and grow. And this is the idea of content lifecycle. The ability to create life cycles around the content that we send to our systems or make available to our systems, right? And so let's look at, you can see I've got a couple of environments here for the OpenSUSE guy. And I can see that the project is on its 5th revision right now, okay? I can see that on revision 3, I added a filter to remove the 32-bit Apache packages. In revision 4, I went ahead and added the 64-bit Apache packages. So let's say, for example, you get your Apache binaries from somebody else. You don't want them from your OS vendor, okay? Because you're getting them through a third-party supported company, right? So you don't want to get the two packages confused. So why even include them in your repos from the OS side? So now I can exclude them from the repositories that I'm going to provide that I get from upstream, okay? And then I can set up a third-party repo and keep that one in sync and provide Apache that way. All right, so here I can say, what are my sources? I can see my sources, the base channel is my leap, and these are the the child channels, if you will. And you can see these are my filters. I'm set up in deny this filter, deny package containing Apache 2 * 586. So if the package has that string in it, deny it. And this one, same thing, Apache 2 * star, the wildcard, x86-64. What if I wanted to create a filter for that date that we talked about, okay? I could say this is deny prior to, what is today's date? March 8th, March 7th, March 1. So I want to, I'm sorry, after March 1. Those are the ones I want to deny. After March 1, okay? I can set here, these are my types of filters that I can create, and you can see I've got an issue date option. And here I can say matches equal, greater than or equal to, and I can set my date up here. And I said I want to do March 1st at 0-100 hours. I'm going to deny them. All right? So I can create that filter, and I can see that I've got and it's in green here because since it's not been built yet. I can see that in my I have what we consider life cycles, or the environments. And so at the moment I've got two environments. I've got a test environment and I have a dev environment. So if I have a group of test machines and I'm pointing them to the test environment, my test set of repos, and that's where I'm going to do all my generic, does this work or not? And if I say yes, that everything worked like I expected it to, I can then promote that set of repos into my dev environment. And now my client, I never had to touch the client. The set of repos that they see, when they do a zipper refresh or a yum repo list, are just going to, oh wow, there's different packages there now. I didn't have to go out to that machine and change all the repo files to point to another repository. Okay, I just updated the repository they're looking at. But I was able to control all of the repositories that they work at from right here. Okay, so I can say I'm build, and I can say what did I do to this? Added filter date. Okay, and I can see the filters. The plus shows me it's the new one in good get format. Okay. And now it's going to start cloning those channels into the test environment, but you can see my dev is still back at version 1, okay? And if I look back up here to my software, and I look at my channels, okay, I can see my OpenSUSE test environment. There's that test word, and there's my dev word. And I can see, if I point machines to this set of repositories versus this set of repositories, and when that gets done building, this number over here will change, okay? Make sense? Kind of get the idea of what I'm trying to do with this? So I can start creating very specific, very regulated repositories. Maybe for like Rail, for example, or CentOS, that in their, when you go out to the primary repo from, or CDN or whatever, it includes all of the, the dev packages along with the primary package, right? Well, I want to filter all that. I don't want to make those available. I don't even want the systems to see them. So I can filter, deny anything that, that has this package name in it, okay? And so it gives me very, very tight control of my ability to then make packages available to a system. And now I can, from that, because I'm able to manage so many types of systems, I can do that all from one location. With other types of management control, and for better or worse, and it's just the way that you've chosen to do it. On the satellite server, for example, you can only manage Red Hat. You can't manage Ubuntu. You can't manage OpenSUSE if you had it, or can't manage SLES if you have it. But we live in a very heterogeneous world. I mean, I work in a lot of environments that have both Red Hat and SUSE, in their environments. And it's very common, especially with SLES for SAP, and that market is just getting bigger. So admins, and I'm a 20-year admin, so I have a heart for administration, needs a way to control and manage all of our systems without having to do it this way for this systems and this way for that systems. And Uyuni or SUSE Manager gives us that flexibility. Okay, so while that's doing that, let's look back at what did I say I was going to cover. So we looked at the monitoring in Grafana. We looked at some SSDs. We kind of got the idea of how the formula could work. If you need me, we can go out to the system and actually see the text for that. Any slides? Oops. There we go. We kind of looked at the content lifecycle and kind of get the idea of how we can be, the idea of creating a life cycle around the content that we give to a system, right? And we kind of played a little bit with the libvirts and the idea that we can now manage our systems if we're using KVM as our virtual machine management infrastructure, which I think is, kind of fun, especially in a test world. Maybe not in the enterprise with in the enterprise tools, but maybe in a test environment or a lab environment. This gives you the ability to control those without having to have, bring up Virt Manager and whatnot. So any questions so far? I mean, we're at 20 till, I've been talking for 40 minutes now. It's your turn to ask something. Or thoughts? Anything you want to see deeper? I can go into a lot deeper. These are the kind of the points that I wanted to bring up. When the team here asked me when I submitted my talk, and they said, "Was this the same talk you gave last year?" I said, "No, it's a newer talk. I want to talk about the things that are newer from last year, and this is what I hope I relayed. But since you guys didn't see last year's talk, I want to make sure you guys got an understanding of where we were anyway. Thoughts, questions?" There's a lot of work being done. We can look at and we can audit containers, and we can rebuild containers if we find the container has a particular CVE audit against it. So we can definitely manage containers as well as VMs. You get below that, no. probably not yet, but definitely with containers, and so we can manage those, we can audit them, and rebuild them, deploy them. I just don't have it set up in my demo for this little example, but if you want, I have another machine, I can probably bring it up and see that. But yes, we can manage and deploy and audit and deploy, configure containers for sure. That's a good question. Thank you, Dave. The question was about containers. Can we manage containers? And yes, containers, not so sure about pods. Other questions, thoughts? Yes, sir.
With VMSs, you were talking about like before, so we have a lot of instances we spin up, right, and then they go away, right, depending on. I know Prometheus has like kind of auto discovery, but
No, because we're sending out a node explorer to node exporter to the node itself, and then once we deploy that package to the system and configured the way we tell it, what are we listening on, and we have our Prometheus server listening for those, they'll show up at that point. But no, we don't have a way of doing right now auto discovery in that kind of mentality, that it just shows up, unless the package is already deployed to a machine and already pre-configured. Do we do that? Okay. Other questions? I want to show you real quick, while we're here, a little bit about SALT, okay? Since SALT is the underlying infrastructure about what a lot of this was running on. And let's see, where do I want to go? Configuration, channels. Oops. Configuration. Oh. And the one thing you need Virtual Machine Manager for is when your Virtual Machine Manager interface dies. I ran out of memory on my laptop is what happens. And Uyuni shuts down when I run out of memory on my laptop. You can see all the VMs that I have running on this little 16 gig laptop. And when it gets unhappy when I do some of these, and so I've learned that this guy will shut down. Even in real life, we don't recommend running Uyuni with less than 10 gig of memory to itself, and preferably 16 gig for a lab and 32 gig for production type of idea, because there's a lot going on here, and so I'm really stretching the limits with this little laptop. So I apologize for that. But while we're waiting for them to reboot, sorry. Any other questions? If you want to know more about SALT, for sure, go talk to the SALT site guys. They're, they have a great booth going on today, and there's a lot we do with SALT. The Uyuni server is a full-fledged SALT master, and the idea of SALT, if you're not familiar with it, it works off of the idea of a 0MQ bus, meaning that there's not a direct communication between the minion, as they call it, the client, and the master. The master puts information out on the 0MQ bus. The minions are listening to that bus, and if they go, hey, that thing on the bus, it belongs to me. And then it responds to it. It runs the action and puts the information back on the bus. The master listens to the bus and then is able to understand what happened, okay? And that's how SALT works in a very small grain of data. So the idea, look at that, I'm maxed out. So the ability to, run and everything's done in parallel. I mean, how many times have we created shell scripts that do for loops across a list of systems? You know, I've got a text list of all my boxes, right? And I do a for loop to hit all of them to do something. I mean, how many times have we done that in our careers? Too many, right? Well, with Salt, it gives us the ability to I want to do something to all my systems, and I put the data out on the 0MQ bus from the master. I have all of the systems listening to the bus all at the same time. Everything happens almost instantaneously, okay? So I can scale now massively and get almost instantaneous results from, you know, tens of thousands of nodes, you know, back. Because I'm not waiting for that for loop to hit machines, you know. I can get data instantly from all of them, or I'm not waiting for an SSH connection to go back out and back, you know, like other configuration management tools use. And so Salt gives us that flexibility and the expandability to hit all of these machines very, very quickly. And so that's why, you know, the developers for Uyuni, System Manager, decided back about 3 years ago to transition the underlying infrastructure from the original traditional mode, which used what was called Open Systems Action Daemon or something, OSAD or OSAD, to Salt. And so we're still in that transition, and you know, still a lot of things are still happening. Are you back yet? No. Oh, maybe. Yay. All right. So let's look at that real quick. And let's look at this one. That's not the one I want. So if you look at this, can you guys see that kind of okay? I can, oops. There, that a little better? Okay, so what I'm doing here in 8 lines of code, and it's all in YAML. I know some people really, really don't like YAML, but you know, oh well. I'm saying this is my initial, can be preform or freeform, anything I wanted to call it. But I'm saying command.run, and this is going to run on, of course, Red Hat systems. I'm going to say subscription manager config --s rhm auto enable yum plugins equals 0. So I'm basically telling it to stop going out to RHN and trying to re-register themselves with Red Hat systems management, right? I'm going to turn that off. At the same time, I want to watch this file, yum plugin conf.d subscription manager.conf. And by putting this watch in here, I can say that if this changes on the system, Salt will go, hey, that changed. Put it back, okay? Because I'm watching that file. And if that file changes, Salt will put it back to the way I want it. Think of the power behind that, okay? And here I've got a couple of, I'm doing some file manage things here. This is the name of the file I want to manage, this yum plugin config subscription manager conf file. And this is where I'm going to put, I've created my own conf file, and this is where I'm getting it from, my local Salt system, my master here. And that's just the one I'm going to put in this location. And when you notice that this is the same as this, so when this changes, I'm going to make sure that that is running, and it's going to be configured with the plugin 0, okay? So very quickly, in 8 lines of code, I'm able to deploy something and make sure something's the way I want it, okay? And so you think about that, that's a very, very, very simplistic Salt state that we call, but we can do a whole lot with it. So if you start getting the idea of how much power we have behind our systems to do with Salt states, with the file watch method, the ability to, if there's not already a built-in command, a function module, if you will, in Salt, I can do the command.run. So pretty much any command I would have ran from the command line, I can then do it with a command.run, okay? But as Salt continues to expand, and I don't know if you happen to listen to Tom Hatch's speech talk the other day about his new programming philosophy called POP. When the videos come out, you should check that out. That's going to be a pretty amazing change of philosophy of programming. Anyway, so there's some really smart people at SALT. All right, I have 9 till. Any more questions back? Question?